Hi, and this week I want to talk to you about your earliest money paradigm. Now, what on earth does that mean? It means that we're all carrying programming. I touched on it last week, but we're all carrying programming from when we were little, between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. There are things that you'll have seen, heard, felt, sensed, experienced around how your primary caregivers, your family, whether that's your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, doesn't matter who, how they dealt with and handled and talked about and behaved around money, bills, and finances. Okay. And it's really important that we bring some light to this, because how that all played out impacts how you are today with money. So we touched in the last video on how there are thoughts, feelings, and emotions and connected trauma that related to that period of your life that you've kind of carried forward unconsciously, and it's manifested in how your money shows up, reflecting the same emotions that were created back then. Okay, so you manifest your money to match the feelings and the emotions that are hardwired in your system. So, for example, when you were really young, if you ever remembered your parents saying something like, well, it's all right for them, or well, we're not like that in this family, or you always have to work hard for your money, or why don't you get a proper job, or something like that. You will have heard and picked up on this when you were younger, and you'll have unconsciously carried it through your life, and it impacts how you behave and feel and think and deal with money, bills, and finances. So, for example, there's such a thing as, you've heard of keeping up with the Joneses, right? Sometimes you may have had a parental or a family situation where, money was spent to try and keep up with wealthy neighbours, or even where there was a divide sensed. So they might have said something like, well, we're not them, it's all right for them, but we're over here. This is, we're working class. We can't afford things like that. Oh, how the other half live. Is this resonating? Right? Most people I know have memories like that, certainly if you come from working class stock like I do. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't happen if you're middle class, upper middle class, whatever. I can't say because I'm not from that background. However, I think this is fairly universal. Now, even if your parents or caregivers didn't talk about money and you didn't hear that kind of thing, you might have picked up on a sense of, we shouldn't talk about money, it's taboo, right? It's not to be talked about at all. And even that void of talking about money can create this feeling that somehow money isn't safe, shouldn't be talked about, shouldn't be looked at, shouldn't be discussed. And guess what that manifests in later in life? Not looking at your finances, right? Not talking about it, not dealing with it. You won't have consciously sat down and thought, I'm not going to deal with my money. But we carry it forward because it's what gets wired into our nervous system. And any feelings or emotions or senses or experiences that you had at that time get wired in. And we manifest our money today to match how we felt back then, because our amygdala, our brain threat detection system, feels safe because it's familiar. Okay. Now, I know I'm hammering this point home a lot during the month of March, but I'm so passionate about this. It really changed my life 3 years ago, 4 years ago, in fact, when I trained in this stuff. Because I'm a trained tapping into wealth coach with Margaret Lynch. And when I discovered all of these set points and all of these limits that we keep bumping up against to do with money, and generally how abundant, not just physical money, but generally how abundant we are allowed to feel, we allow ourselves to feel, how much we allow ourselves to receive, right? Now, I'm going to be getting into more aspects of this as we go through March, but I really want to let you know that this is not your fault, okay? This is just the way the system is wired. Again, building on what we said last week. Our nervous system is wired to protect us. Our brain is wired to protect us. And it keeps us in these patterns that are familiar, because anything that's unfamiliar, a different identity, a different way of operating around money, is unfamiliar and therefore feels risky and potentially unsafe. But this can have you doing things like limiting yourself in your income, unconsciously, not showing up, not going for the real job that you want, not asking for a raise, not starting your own business because maybe you've been told, well, you need to have a real job, right? You can't make money from your gifts and skills. It may even have gone to the extreme of having a parental or family situation that frowns upon things like Reiki or healing or whatever because they tell you it's a scam. Okay. Now they don't mean to stick a spanner in the works. I know that. You and I both know that. For the most part, it's not malicious and it's not conscious. Okay. But again, it's family paradigms being carried forward. And the great news is it can stop with you. Okay. So if you have your own children, and even if you don't, I don't have any biological children, but it doesn't mean that we can't be cycle breakers. You can stop this paradigm in its tracks in the work that I'm going to invite you to join me in, and you can break that cycle for either anybody in your biological family, you know, children that you've got, grandchildren that you've got because your children have children, or just in the people that you contact, the people that you deal with, your client base, if you are already a healer or an energy worker, right? It's really important, this work, because you can influence your partner as well, and maybe their children and their children's children. You can even influence your own parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, you know, if you've got living relatives. So please don't underestimate this work. It's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I'd love to invite you to join me in April for our 4-week deep dive masterclass, all about having healthy money. It's about rooting out, uncovering all of these set points, all of these limitations, all of these patterns and paradigms and programming that you have had handed down to you unconsciously, unwittingly, granted, but it has been handed down to you. But the great news is you can stop it here. Okay. So for £97, you can join me throughout the whole of April for 4 live masterclasses with me in Zoom, very in-depth, very experiential. You'll get the tapping scripts, you'll get everything you need to carry on doing this again and again and again if you want it. Okay. And you have access to the course in the background in New Zenler for Life. That's like my platform that's a bit like Kajabi. Okay. So you get to do the work with me live, and then you get the course afterwards, the 4 weeks to keep. Okay. £97. So I hope that you get something from this video anyway, whether or not you join the masterclass, but I would love to invite you to consider joining us. And if you would like the details, it will be somewhere around this video, or you can drop me a message on social media and ask me for the link. It's going to change your life. It's going to change the way you operate around money for the better and forever. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you in the 4-week masterclass in April.